Hey guys, Zach with Zach's GT Garage here. Today I figured I'd share my story on how I got my first Escort GT and also what got me into Escort GTs to begin with. So these first three pictures are the pictures that were on the listing when the car was available online. I was 16 at the time and I remember always wanting an Escort GT, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But basically this was a 93 and I was super excited to get it. Now, I don't fully remember the backstory on the car. I want to say I remember the previous owners that had the car before took it to this shop and they didn't like the way the guy fixed it. And he ended up just giving them the title and the guy had no use for it. So that's why he put it online. And that's how I found the car. And my dad took this picture of me getting back in the car after putting a few gallons of gas in the car. And I remember taking this the next morning. A couple things you might notice here. One, it's got aftermarket fog lights. Those are not the same fog lights that the Escort GT originally came with. And also the signal lights, well, lamps if you want to get specific. They were the clear kind, and I never really cared for too much for that look. I like the stock orange signal lamps. And I didn't know this, but I was about to encounter a whole lot of silicone that mechanic thought he knew what he was doing, but he didn't. He literally fixed anything and everything, including vacuum leaks, with silicone. Even I found a couple rust spots on the hood and everything like that. It got covered up by silicone. As I worked on the car and peeled silicone off, I had enough silicone to make a life-size Barbie. And this picture is the first oil change I did, I think a month or two after I had the car. And you may notice there is black Gorilla Tape on the front bumper on the driver's side. Yes, I said black Gorilla Tape. So the story behind this was I was at school and I was backing the Escort out of my parking stall because I was leaving school, and my buddy had a Dodge Ram. Wasn't fully straight, but I ended up turning a little too soon, and the corner of the driver's side of the bumper caught his wheel and popped that little first corner part off. But don't feel bad. The Ram didn't even have a mark on the tire from the Escort's bumper.
I'm not a smart man.
But after that, I ended up swapping out the signal lamps, and I also did some rewiring to get the fog lights working. Nice. This picture is my mom's red 1993 Ford Escort GT in this picture at my grandma's old house sometime before I was born. And she bought it brand new. I remember she told me she traded her Geo Metro in for the Ford Escort, which she bought it with my grandpa. And I never got to meet my grandpa. He died in 93 and I was born a few years later. And my grandpa is one of the people who inspired me to do what I do for a living, which is being a truck driver. And I'm a sentimental person, and I just have a lot of good memories of my parents and my sister and I growing up, making memories in that car, taking it everywhere. I believe my parents said they sold the car in 2005 and it had almost 200,000 miles on it. And the Escort is one of the cars my dad got me into cars to begin with and started teaching me about them and everything. I remember he used to own a copy center store when I was growing up, and a lot of Saturdays I remember going with him, and when I was old enough to sit up front, I remember he teaching me and allowing me to shift for him, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever in the world. A lot of great memories and fun one-on-one time with my dad like that growing up. I got really sentimental and became attached to the car. I've always loved the look of the car. When I see this car or talk about it, what really comes down to mind is memories of spending time with family, either all of us in the car or just me and my dad one-on-one. So I remember we sold it to a family friend that lived next door to us because their son was just turning 16 and that was his first car. I remember he got into an accident with the Escort, and what happened was it was during the winter and he thought a car wasn't coming as fast as it was, and he went to go pull out and the car hit the Escort and basically totaled it. But I'm trying to remember if it was on the driver's side or the passenger side that it got hit, because the damage was just about the same damage as this Escort GT right here, but I want to say the damage was done on the driver's side. But I remember seeing the Escort wrecked and glad he was okay, but at the same time I had so many memories of my family in that car, and the thought of it not being able to be fixed even by my dad, I couldn't understand why it couldn't be fixed. But then again, I was really little, still in elementary school. I went to the junkyard one day and discovered this Escort GT. It was a 1991. It was Escort GT I looked at before my black one I ended up getting came up for sale. And I recognized it because of the darker red color and also the oddly looking different wheels that are on it. Also, the grille was also missing, which it turned out to be in the hatch, and the Butterfield Ford badge was also on the car. But the wheels were a dead giveaway. But I ended up taking a few parts off of it. One of them was the emblem that says Escort GT on it in yellow, orange, and red. And then the other one, I believe I took the two red reflectors next to both taillights to put on my Escort GT because they were missing on my Escort GT when I got it, and I don't know why. But what I did with the Escort GT emblem that I took off that Escort GT is I put it on my red toolbox, which I still have. Overall, the car still looked good, and the junkyard told me whenever they have a car that's been parted out for a while, then that's when they send it and have it crushed. So in this picture, I ended up putting as much back together as I could so that way it'd stay there longer because I knew I'd be coming back for more parts. In this picture, I can't remember what I was doing. I think I had just put the red reflectors on that go next to the taillights on both sides. And I also swapped out the orange reflector that goes flush with the back of the hatch with the signal lights because my old one was badly cracked and falling apart. And I believe I was also doing a tire rotation. Then once I got all that done, I went ahead and got the car all washed. Then I went ahead and went to the junkyard one day and I found a Escort GT and somebody had painted the front bumper silver. So I figured I'd pick that up because it was in really good condition and I put it on the car. And I thought it kind of looked kind of unique and kind of good, kind of like the two-tone Fox body Mustang GTs from the early 90s. And then also in this picture, I remember we were leaving, I want to say to Lava Hot Springs in Idaho, where we were going to stay at some family condos and visit family, like my family normally does on Memorial Weekend. And I took this picture with my dad's 35th anniversary Mustang GT behind the Escort. Now in this picture, I remember I got into photography back in high school and I took this pretty cool shot of the front end of the Escort. Sometime later, I ended up going back to the junkyard because I had trouble finding Escort GTs for more parts. And I went there one winter day and found this white 91 Escort GT. And just in case anything happened again, I wanted to keep the silver bumper as a spare. So I took the white one off this Escort GT and I also took the rear bumper off. Because on my rear bumper, right where the bumper dips down underneath the license plate, you can guess it, silicone. And silicone had melted from the hot summer and it ended up cracking and ended up falling in, and so that part under the license plate was missing, which is why I ended up grabbing the white bumper. Here's a picture I took at my grandma's old house. Still had the silver front bumper on it because I hadn't had time to put the white front bumper on it, and then also I got the white rear bumper on it, but I believe I put the white bumper on right before I was ready to paint it. And then sometime later, as it got warmer, I decided to paint the bumpers to match the car, so the car is all one color again. This is how it turned out. I discovered I am not a painter, and when I did the clear coat, had a bunch of runs through it from the clear coat, from it dripping down, and then I didn't put enough of it on, and it started to peel and chip off, and you could see the white bumper underneath. As you can see, it starts to chip off because I didn't put enough clear coat on. But certainly didn't look that great, but it didn't look that bad, especially for being my first time doing it by myself with no experience and no knowledge of what I was doing. So I took these next quite a few photos of the car because I was still in photography class and I was trying to learn on how to get like the cool and the right angles and the color effects in the pictures and everything like that. But I thought these turned out really nice, and as you can see, especially in this picture, is the emblem is changed. So with the black, Escort GT emblem came in like a white, silver, and gray. Same color as the Escort LX emblem came in, but all the Escort LXs were all the same color for the Escort LX emblem. And then I had changed it just to mix it around from the yellow, orange, and red that were only on the red Escort GTs, and then I switched it for a while to this baby blue Escort GT that were on the green, blue, and white Escort GTs. And then one day after school, my buddy, who is a much, much better painter than I am, offered to help me repaint the front and the rear bumpers of the Escort GT, and he also wanted to repaint the grille. And we actually did it right this time. We actually sanded it down so the paint had something to grip onto, and we also put a couple more layers of paint on there, and then we also did quite a bit of clear coat, so that way the paint would not come off at all. And here's how it looked after doing it the correct way. Now, the next project I worked on was replacing the carpet that I got for my birthday or Christmas, I can't remember. But I also wanted to replace the carpet to make the inside of the car also look a lot nicer, but also because when I first got the car, the O-ring that goes in under the sending unit, under the rear seat, it was bad because it was old, and inside of the car smelled like gasoline. Because if I filled it all the way up, it would leak until it was 3/4 full, and then after that it wouldn't leak. So I just had to make sure I only filled it like halfway, so that way it didn't leak and also make the inside smell like really strong gasoline. And here's how it looked once the new carpet was in. I remember my dad ended up helping me. There was a lot of cutting where the holes were for the center console and the seats and the wiring and all the underneath the feet vents and everything. There was a lot of cutting. The carpet came molded to the shape of the car, but it didn't come pre-cut. But the charcoal carpet looked pretty nice in there. Then the next thing that I did was I swapped the gauge clusters in the instrument cluster, because through the years they will fade from orange to this white yellow color, and so I decided to swap to better looking gauges that I found in the junkyard that still had orange gauges. And here's how the better looking gauges looks. The tachometer was from an Escort LX. That was the closest match I could find, so everything matched perfectly. That's why it's got an orange and red line at 6,000 RPM versus 7,000 RPM. Because the Escort LX was a single overhead cam, which is why it redlined at 6,000 RPM. And the Escort GT was the Mazda BP engine, and it redlined at 7,000 RPM.
I'm a smart man.
And then my buddy and I were driving around and we spotted a Saline Fox Body Mustang. So we decided to park the Escort next to it and take a couple pictures. Now, this was quite some time later. My dad and I ended up replacing the water pump on the Escort, and I also had swapped back to the yellow, orange, and red Escort GT emblem, and had to have the car towed because my dad and I forgot to mark where the timing gears were for the intake and the exhaust, and the car wouldn't start because we had messed up the timing. And so not long after that, I ended up getting like a second car, and so the Escort sat for I think 4 to 6 months, maybe longer, and so I eventually got it to the shop and they adjusted the timing right and it started right up without a problem. And then once the Escort was running perfectly again, I decided to drive it for a while, and I just really missed driving it and really enjoyed driving it. I was just brought back so many memories from when I first got it to what I've done all to it, and it was just really enjoyable to drive the car again. So these are the last pictures that I have of the Escort because I ended up selling it because I was super excited to become a dad and I just wanted to get financially ahead, and I already had the other car that I was driving, and so I figured I would go ahead and sell the Escort and be as prepared and ready as I could for when my daughter came. But I really enjoyed the car while I had it, and all the stuff I did to it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing everything that I did to the car. Thanks, guys, for watching. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you'd like, and we'll see you next time.